Okay, good day, students. Today we're going to start our 10 minutes presentation session, which is today is basically our first session, or you can say our first part of our scheduled three-part of presentation sessions for the 10 minutes talk. And as we mentioned in the last lecture, the number of presenters that are going to talk today is about 8, but unfortunately I have a message from Hans that he have some kind of a delay at the moment. So what I'm going to do with this list of names is that I'm going to call not in the order, but I'm going to call the name a little bit randomly. So please prepare your slide whenever you are called by the lecturer. And before we start our presentation, I would like you to download all the assessment sheet. Okay, let me. Okay, I'm asking you to download the assessment sheet that you are required to fill as you are now also act as an audience or the listeners of your friends' presentations, and you gave them feedback or gave them some kind of evaluations in terms of their performance, which I've already uploaded in EduNext. Let me share the screen. Okay, please download the assessment sheet over here so that you can fill the presenter's performance for today's and for next Tuesday and Thursday sessions. Okay, please go here. Okay, in the 10 minutes presentation assessment, sorry, there is an assessment sheet that you need to download. Okay, and after you download it, you fill in the grades of everyone's talk, and then you submit the assessment sheet after the whole presentation has finished. So please download this assessment sheet, and then if you are confused with the grading of each presenter, please download the presenter's assessment criteria on the basis on how you evaluate each presenter's performance. Okay, so please, I have also a copy of that. So the points of each presenters will be evaluated by the audience based on their performance and based on the assessment sheet that each student must fill, and therefore it is required for all of you to evaluate your peers' performance in this 10 minutes presentation session. Okay, let me show you again the assessment sheet. Okay, you need to fill in and you need to evaluate the presenter's ability to organize and design his or her presentation in a logical sequences. And then you have to evaluate whether the presenter uses excellent presentation technique in terms of the language, in terms of the way he opened his talk, the way he transferring from one section to another, and the way that he ends his talk in the last part of his presentation. And also you need to evaluate whether the presenter is mastering the content. There are no stammering, there are no pause, during the presentation. And also the final part is, the final two part is whether the visualization, the figure, graph, and chart that each presenter has in the slides is carefully designed, is carefully added, so that there are no loss in resolution, etc., and so on. And then whether the presenter is following the constraint of today's session, which is we are basically try to mimic the situation when you are having a presentation in room 1201 in our physics department building. Okay, so you need to evaluate 1, 2, 3, 4, 5 columns for each presenters. And after we're done with the whole session of 10 minutes presentation by next week, Thursday, you need to submit this into the Google Drive that I have gave in the EduNext over here, as well as the presentation files in the separate folder in the Google Drive. Okay, without further ado, I guess we could start our presentation. So let me check. Okay, we have 25. Okay, so I guess there are 2 accounts made by students. Okay, so that's I guess that is due to the in order to avoid technical difficulties. Okay, so I would like to call Rifka Rahayu as our first presenter. Is Rifka in the classroom?
Yes, sir.
Okay. Okay, I will stop my screen now, and then I will let you prepare your slide. And you may start whenever you're ready.
Okay. Assalamualaikum warahmatullahi wabarakatuh.
Assalamualaikum warahmatullahi wabarakatuh.
Good afternoon, everyone. I would like to say thank you for coming in my presentation. Let me introduce myself. My name is Rifka Rahayu with the ID number 102180838 from Institut Teknologi Bandung. In this opportunity, I would like to present the background acceleration analysis of 2000 until 2020 earthquake data using STEFA method in West Sulawesi. First, I will explain to you about the objectives of this research. That is to determine the background acceleration or PGA value in West Sulawesi based on earthquake data from 2000 until 2020 using the STEFA method. Why this is important? Because by knowing the PGA, how much the damage caused by an earthquake, so that disaster mitigation can be done. Next, this is about introduction of earthquake in Indonesia. In this picture, we can see that there have been many earthquakes that have occurred from the beginning of 2021 until 7 October 2021. The question is, why is Indonesia quite prone to earthquake? This is because Indonesia is located on the Asia-Pacific volcanic route, which is a path prone to seismic activity. And then Indonesia is also traversed by 3 world tectonic plates that continue to move relative to one another, namely the Indo-Australian, Asian or Eurasia, and Pacific plates. Next, earthquake in West Sulawesi. We know that West Sulawesi is one of the provinces in Indonesia which is located on the island of Sulawesi. And also, West Sulawesi is a province that is quite prone to earthquakes. Why? Why is West Sulawesi quite prone to earthquake? This is because the existence of a fault in the earth crust on the island of Sulawesi with quite large dimensions, namely the Palu Koro Fault. And then, according to Indonesian Agency for Meteorology, Climatology, and Geophysics, or BMKG data, West Sulawesi have occurred at least 7 destructive earthquakes that caused a lot of damage and caused dozens of people to die. This picture shows the damage caused by an earthquake in Mamuju, January 2021. Well, one of the parameters that can determine the size of the damage caused by an earthquake is peak ground acceleration, or PGA. PGA is an indicator of the ground acceleration that occurs in a place due to an earthquake, and PGA can be determined using an accelegraph and also empirical approaches such as the Esteva, Donovan, Maygur, Richter, and so on. And this picture shows the accelegraph located at BMKG Goa, South Sulawesi. Okay, in this study, the PGA value will be analyzed and will be determined using the Esteva method based on earthquake data in West Sulawesi from 2000 until 2020, where the formula can be seen in the Formula 1, where A is the PGA in GAL, M is earthquake magnitude, and R is the hypocenter distance in kilometer. And also, the formula of the hypocenter and epicenter can be seen in Formula 2, where delta is epicenter distance in kilometer, H is the depth of earthquake source in kilometer, and lat and lon is 10 for latitude and longitude. Also, we can see in the figure 4 the relationship between hypocenter, epicenter, and observation point. The next section is about methodology. First, research time and location. The data of this research is taken from 2000 until 2020, and the location is in West Sulawesi with the coordinate position as shown on this slide. And then the tools and materials that we use are earthquake catalog of 2000 until 2020 in West Sulawesi with the magnitude is bigger and equal to 4, and the depth is smaller and equal to 60 kilometers. And we also used Microsoft Excel and ArcGIS 10.3 to do the data processing. Next is research procedure. The first thing to do is preparing an earthquake data, where the data can be downloaded from United States Geological Survey or USGS website. The second one is determine the measurement points or grid, where in this study, there are 41 measurement points were used. Third, determine the epicenter and hypocenter distance using Formula 2 in the previous slide. Next, calculating the PGA value in each grid using the Esteva method, where the calculation is done using Microsoft Excel, and then determine the largest PGA value on each grid. And the last one is creating a PGA contour map using interpolation method in ArcGIS. Okay, this section is the result of this research. First, this picture is the map of the measurement points or grid points that we use, where there are 41 measurement points that distribute in the research area and marked with a blue triangle symbol as seen in this slide. And the distance of each point or grid is 35 kilometers. And then after determining the measurement point, the largest PGA value is determined on each grid so that a PGA contour map is obtained. And this is the picture of contour map of peak ground acceleration or PGA in West Sulawesi using the Esteva method. where the PGA values are classified into 5 classes, which are marked with dark green, light green, yellow, orange, and red colors, as seen in the map on this slide. We obtained that the highest PGA value is 61.97 gal is in Mamasa Regency, and the lowest PGA value is 6.44 gal in North Mamuju or Pasangkayu Regency. The PGA value that we obtained is certainly influenced by the strength of the earthquake that has occurred in the area, the distance from the earthquake source, and also the geographical conditions of the area. So, as seen on the map, each area has a different PGA value. And then, as for analyzing the PGA value that has been obtained is to convert it to the MMI or Modified Mercalli Intensity, MMI scale, to determine the intensity of the damage that can be caused by an earthquake. And the analysis of this research will be present in the next presentation. So that is my presentation. Thank you very much for your great attention. May all that we have shared be beneficial for all of us. Good afternoon. Wassalamualaikum warahmatullahi wabarakatuh.
Assalamualaikum warahmatullahi wabarakatuh. Okay, thank you, Rifka. The time that you took for this presentation is 9 minutes, which is good. And so that will be an example for many of you who are going to present in the following. Okay, thank you, Rifka. I have noted several things that need to be that probably you could think as your improvement for the next presentation, but I will talk about it later on during the evaluation session. Okay, in order for us to have an effective time for today, let us move on to the second presenter. After Rifka, I'm going to call Nabila Ashifa.
Yes, sir. Wait. Let me share the screen. Is my screen visible?
Yes.
Okay.
Okay, you can start whenever you're ready.
Okay. Greetings, everyone. Assalamualaikum warahmatullahi wabarakatuh. I am Nabila Ashifa. Today, I'm going to present my work in a paper with the title of Identifying Soil Physical Parameter Using Downhole Seismic Methods, where this survey took place in Cilacap, Jawa Tengah. First thing first, I will talk about the background of this research. So as human beings, we are strictly dependent on Earth's natural energy resources for our basic needs. Those energy from natural resources need to be obtained beforehand. There are many ways to do that. One of them is to use geophysical approaches. As said, to finally be able to get the energies, we have to do a preliminary exploration, which is an investigation carried out along certain broad features of a coal or mineral area with the object of deciding whether the preposition is such as to warrant a detailed or final exploration, which is often costly. In this research, the final output is to determine the soil properties or what kind of soil lies around Cilacap, Jawa Tengah. As in figure 1, as you can see, I've already put an easy example for us to understand as to what I mentioned earlier about determining the soil properties. In this figure, there are already 3 informations of different types of soil, such as salt, sandy clay, and hard silt, in different depths. So this information was also done with the same method that I used. However, we're going to have a slightly different outcome as the image shown by the end of this research. Moving on to the survey area that I have mentioned a couple times earlier. Cilacap is located in Jawa Tengah, Indonesia, specifically in the southwestern part of Jawa Tengah, near Nusa Kambangan Island on the Indian Ocean. As in figure 2, Cilacap is not a big town either. It's more to a seaport that was used during the Battle of the Java Sea in 1942. It has road and rail connections to the rest of Java Island. Oil refining is among the area's most important industries too. According to some websites, Cilacap is the site of many industrial plants, a geothermal power plant, a cement plant for Holcim Indonesia, and one of Pertamina processing units in Indonesia. The site has the largest production capacity, producing the most diverse kind of products among other Pertamina units. Next, I will continue to tell the purposes of this research. There are 3 purposes, and what are those? The first one is to determine the physical parameter of soil in a certain area in Cilacap, Jawa Tengah. Next, we want to correlate the Poisson's ratio value of survey area of the survey area. And the last one is to finally to specify the type of soil based on its Poisson's ratio that we have earned earlier around Cilacap, Jawa Tengah. What the method is used in this research? Here, let me explain a little bit about the method used in this paper. Basically, the seismic methods are the most commonly conducted geophysical survey for engineering investigation. Seismic reflection provides engineers and geologists with the most basic of geology data, along with simple procedure with common equipment. Any mechanical vibration is initiated by a source and travels to the location where the vibration is noted. These vibrations are seismic waves. There are 2 types of seismic waves, which is body waves, here you can see in figure 3, and surface waves. Since we're using the active seismic or the downhole seismic testing method, we're gonna talk about the body waves. There are here in figure 3. As you can see here, there are compressional or pressure or primary wave, or known as P wave. It is the fastest traveling of all seismic waves, where the particle motion of P wave is extension or dilation and compression along the propagating direction. P waves travel through all media that support seismic waves, such as airways or noises in gases, including the atmosphere. As compressional waves in fluids, for example, water and air, are commonly referred to acoustic waves. The second wave type is the secondary or transfer or shear waves, or known as S waves, where S waves travel slightly slower than P waves in solids. S waves have particle motion perpendicular to propagating direction, like the obvious movement of a rope as a displacement speeds along its length. This transfer wave can only transit material that has shear strength. So S waves therefore do not exist in liquids and gases, as these media have no shear strength. Body waves are also related to the rock elasticity properties. So this is why we didn't use the surface body, because it only travels at some Earth surfaces, not all Earth surfaces. And how the downhole seismic testing works? So the downhole method is a seismic geophysical method which output is in the form of reading or interpreting the structure of the subsurface layers of the Earth in the form of soil and rock material properties by using direct seismic waves. The P waves and S waves we mentioned earlier as step function. Based on the relationship between velocity and depth, the layer structure and the type of material that make up each layer will be identified. This testing measures particle changes in seismic velocity by placing a source at the top of the borehole. This is the borehole. And this is going to be the source, I'm sorry. and measuring travel times at multiple intervals in the borehole, usually with 3 component geophones. As you can see in the schematic in this figure 4, here is the upper 3 component geophone, and this is the lower 3 component geophone. They are placed a meter apart from each other, and the receiver is in the form of this geophone. The wave source is from the shots or blasting point here, and this method uses direct wave propagation where the geophone receives and detects the first wave that reaches the geophone without seeing other wave reflections. Moving on to the process of the data processing, first, we're going to obtain the pseudo velocity in the form of pressure or compression wave, and we're going to obtain the VS or the shear velocity in the form of the shear wave. Next, after knowing the values of the pseudo velocity and the shear velocity, we're going to match up the values of those particular velocity to the values of the Poisson's ratio. Finally, after knowing the Poisson ratios itself, we can determine the physical properties of the soil because the Poisson's ratio itself is an elastic constant that represents the physical properties of the rock. So what are the limitations and benefits from the survey? This measurement will be was carried out by taking the data gradually for each depth of 1 meter from the deepest. This data collection was carried out to a depth of 18 meters. So there's going to be 18 data points for the survey. And unlike the other testing methods or cross-hole, for this downhole testing, the wave source stays on the surface. This means that the ray paths are largely redundant from one geophone depth to the next. And we are looking more at the difference in travel time with depth and the slope of the travel time curve rather than the absolute travel time for each shot, much like seismic refraction. Last but not least, the benefit of the survey is to identify the type of soil in a certain area in Cilacap, Jawa Tengah. So the following results can proceed to begin the exploration of Earth's natural resources, just like what I stated earlier in the background, that this is going to be a preliminary exploration for geophysical exploration. That brings us to the end of the presentation. I would also like to thank you for the time and attention today. Assalamualaikum warahmatullahi wabarakatuh.
Assalamualaikum warahmatullahi wabarakatuh. Okay, thank you. Nabila has spent 10 minutes zip for her presentation, and there are not too many notes from her presentation, so that now we can move on to the next presenters. Thank you, Nabila, for giving the talk about downhole seismic. The next presenter will be Talia Elfata.
Yes, sir.
Okay. Okay, Balia will be our third presenter of today's session. Talking about what? Yeah.
I'm going to talk about
magnitude telluric inversion with artificial neural network. Okay, the time is yours.
Okay. Good morning, everyone. Here I am by Fata as a physics study program student from Institut Teknologi Bandung. I'm going to talk about 1D magnetic telluric inversion using artificial neural network method. So the outline of this presentation would be the background, and I'm going to talk about the artificial intelligence, magnitude telluric inversion, artificial neural network, and the method that I use on this presentation. So from the background, we know that artificial intelligence is a new technique that is with more efficiency because we don't have an actual human that's working on the task to solve the problems. And I'm choosing artificial neural network as the artificial intelligence tool that can model physical phenomenon without mathematical representations. So we don't need to use the equations like that, and it's really easy to use. It's also easy to access because we can use artificial neural network from MATLAB or Python, which is also an easy to access programming language because it's easy to learn. And from artificial neural network, I'm going to study the magnetotelluric inversion with the as an alternative method with artificial neural network in hope that we can make the inversion more faster by calculating the impedance. So artificial neural network is a really popular topic right now. It's really trending, and there is a wide variety of applications like smart assistants, social media recommendations, self-driving cars, and email spam filter. And it's unique that there is no human error because the problem solving is done by the machine. So the machine can get tired like that, like a human can do by working on the problem solving. So artificial intelligence is really a new unique technique to solve problems. And here we have the magnetotelluric inversion, which is using the electromagnetic waves to be that is shot to the ground, the Earth's surface, to determine the impedance value of a material. So we can know each layer what is the material in which layer and what is the height from the material. So artificial neural network, in example, you can see the picture on the left where we have input layer with 3 inputs, and we have the weighted connectors, and we have 2 hidden layer here. It's going to affecting each of the input is going to affect 2 hidden layers, and we're gonna get 1 output, and we can change the number of input and output in this layer. So from this model, we're going to make a model that can do the magnetotelluric inversion, and it's inspired. The artificial neural network is really good for big sets of size of data sets. So that's why I'm going to use it on magnetotelluric inversions, because it have many data, so it might be working more efficiently. And here is the 4 modeling method that I use, which is the regular inverse magnetotelluric inversion, where we input the rho, the height, and the frequency. And for each frequency shot to the Earth's surface, we're going to calculate the impedance of each layer of the Earth's surface from under the ground. And if we are done counting each impedance, we're going to count the density of the layers and the phase. And from the phase, we're going to make a function of the frequency of each frequency that we shot to the Earth's surface. And from the application of this, it is a derivative from the Maxwell equation. We get the equation to determine the impedance is Z here, and the inputs that we are going to use is the density, electric conductivity, electric permittivity, magnetic permeability, angular frequency, and the height of the Earth, the layer from under the ground. And this is the application. I'm programming the equation from the previous slide. I've programmed it in for Mola translation programming, so we can get the impedance of each layer. This is the regular method, and my method is using the artificial neural network. And here I'm using building the model, the ANN architecture in Python, and we can change. It's easy to use. We can change each neurons of each layer. We can input how many neurons, and we can determine how many inputs, and we can, this is the determine how many outputs. It will be changed based on the inputs and outputs of my research. Okay, that's it for my presentation. Thank you for listening, and good morning.
Okay, thank you, Balya. You've spent a little bit more than 6 minutes. You take 6 minutes and 15 seconds for this presentation. So there are plenty of time for you to describe more things in the session, but that's okay. I will record, or I will write the correction that you need to do, possibly for the 15 minutes presentation, and also regarding the time consumption. I guess for everybody here, it is okay for you to spend less than 10 minutes, but hopefully it's not too much. So although I think there are some kind of idioms or a saying out there that if you're able to talk less than the required time for presentation, which is basically a better approach for all of you. But it is advisable for students to able, basically using their whole time period for 10 minutes or 10 minutes, a little bit less of 30 to 40 seconds from 10 minutes, so that the amount of information that you can cover for your presentation will be plentiful and also beneficial for the listeners also. Okay, so we would like to thank Balya for his presentation, so that we can move on to our 4 presenters. Okay, the 4 presenters, I think I will choose Aleta. Is Aleta in the classroom?
Yes, sir.
Okay. Whenever you're ready, Aleta.
Good afternoon, Mr. Hari and my friends. My name is Aleta, and here I'm going to talk about my topic, which is fundamental and technical analysis of stock prices at PT Jasa Marga. To begin, we all know that businesses must develop themselves in order to compete in today's market. But how? By applying modern management and competitive strategies. A high stock price is one of the competitive strategies that indicates that the businesses that owns it is more valuable. The stock price is one indicator of a company's management success. So if a company's stock price grows regularly, investors and potential investors believe that the company is effective at managing its business. So why should we learn about this topic? We can discover and employ the most effective strategy for analyzing stock prices. When it comes to evaluating stock prices, there are 2 approaches. The first is fundamental analysis, which works by estimating the market fair share and forecasting future values by combining past data. Before making investment decisions, fundamental analysis evaluates qualitative parameters, such as the economic environment, industry performance, and business performance. Finally, the objective of this study isn't only to identify a successful firm and profitable business, but it's also to find businesses that are worth more than investors expect. The second approach is one of the most popular methods for investors to make investing decisions is through technical analysis. Technical analysis is a means of examining and predicting price movement in the financial markets. Finding the optimum trading price is one of the benefits of employing technical analysis, which is difficult with a buy and hold strategy from years ago. So how exactly does it work? It works by relying on prior knowledge of prices and related data to predict future values by using mathematical techniques. Technical analysis has more advantages than fundamental analysis, since it can provide good entry points, also known as buying points, and exit points, also known as selling points. Another benefit of using technical analysis is that it clearly defines the target, which is the amount of profit we should get in the specific period of time, as well as the stop loss point, which is the lowest price point before we sell the stock. This may help us avoid losing too much money. Finally, technical analysis can give early warning signs of price changes, allowing us to become more attentive and know what to do next. So the first element of the study is the current ratio. The current ratio is the simplest method for calculating the liquidity ratio. This formula is used to evaluate the company's ability to fulfill short-term obligations with current liquid assets. The formula for calculating the current ratio is the current assets divided by the current liabilities. The current assets, also known as short-term assets, are assets that can be quickly liquidated or cashed out in less than a year or one accounting cycle. These assets must be quantified in currency units in order to be recognized as current assets. Current liabilities are obligations that are anticipated to be paid with current assets within 12 months or less. The higher the current ratio, the more company is able to fulfill its short-term obligations, which means that as the current ratio rises, the stock prices rises along with it. This is why the first hypothesis is the current ratio has a beneficial effect on stock prices at PT Jasa Marga. The second one is the debt and equity ratio or DER. It indicates the ability of the company to pay its obligation with its own capital. DER is a financial ratio that compares the amount of debt to equity as shown on the formula. The quantity of equity and debt utilized for corporate operations must be proportionate. A debt, also known as the liability, is an obligation that must be paid in cash to the creditor by the firm within a specific time frame. Meanwhile, equity is a company's ownership of its asset, which is a net value, and equity is made up of deposits from the company's shareholder, as well as the company's residual retained earnings. So the higher this ratio means the greater the risk for creditors, because a high DER indicates a lesser degree of protection for money invested in the company by creditors. If a business has a low DER, it indicates that the company's stock price will be high. Therefore, the second hypothesis of the study is DER has a negative impact on the stock price of PT Jasa Marga. The next one is return on assets or ROA. Every company must understand the return on assets in order to evaluate efficiency in transforming the money used to purchase assets into net income. Return on assets is a ratio or a measure of management efficiency that indicates the outcome of the amount of assets utilized in the company. The formula is the net profit divided by total asset. Because interest is a return to the creditors on the resources they provide to the company, the net profit utilized in this computation is obtained before subtracting interest charges. The higher the ROI is, the more effective the use of the firm assets, or in other words, greater profits can be created with the same amount of assets and vice versa. Then, the next hypothesis of this study is the return on assets has a positive impact on the stock price of PT Jasa Marga. The next one is the Composite Stock Price Index, or Jakarta Composite Index, or GCI. This is one of the stock market index used to measure the performance of all equities listed on the main board and development board on the IDX. Many things impact the GCI, and one of those is economic news. When there's news that a country's economic state is degrading, it is almost likely that the GCI will worsen as well. When the GCI rises, it indicates that the stock price on the IDX are generally increasing. But please keep in mind that it is important to note that the GCI is a summary of all share prices changes on the IDX. This means that the movement of the stock may differ from what occurred to the price of each stock. There may be equities that are growing while the GCI is dropping, and vice versa. So the study's fourth hypothesis is the company's stock price index has a positive impact on the PT Jasa Marga company stock prices. The last one is trading volume. This is the next element that influences stock price. For an investor, stock trading volume is important since it indicates the state of securities traded in the capital market. So what exactly is trading volume? Trading volume is the number of shares exchanged on a certain period of time. Active trading of a stock with a large trading volume implies that the stock is popular among the investors, indicating that it trades fast. This is one of the indicators used in technical analysis on stock price evaluation, as well as an instrument that can be utilized to evaluate the capital's market reaction to information through the parameters or activity movement. The lower the share price means that the fewer shares exchanged. As a result, the last hypothesis of this study is trading volume has a positive impact on the stock price of PT Jasa Marga. So, the data collection was carried out on PT Jasa Marga, which is listed on Indonesia Stock Exchange or www.idx.co.id, and from PT Jasa Marga's official website, www.jasamarga.com. Because this research employs quantitative data, we shall offer the data in descriptive style. The sample used for this study is the interim consolidated financial statement for the first quarter from December 2020 until March 2021, and the second quarter from March until 2021. To find out which analysis is better, we need to do some tests. And for this study, we use classical assumption test, which consists of normality test, heterodicity test, autocorrelation test, multicollinearity test, and if it is fulfilled, it may be concluded that the regression model is best linear unbiased estimation. Hypothesis testing in this study is to determine whether the independent variable is partially or simultaneously related to the dependent variable using the F-test and the T-test. The regression model is multiple regression analysis with the formula shown on step 4. After that, based on the result of the regression analysis, we can observe the coefficient of determination, F-test and T-test. That's all for my presentation today. I hope my presentation can be useful and add new knowledge for all of us. Thank you for listening.
Okay, thank you, Aletha. The time consumption for this presentation is, let me see, is 9 minutes and 10 seconds, which is in the normal time period, even though it's a little bit exceeding 10 seconds, but that's on the appropriate or acceptable limit for the 10 minutes presentation. Okay, so it's okay. Yeah, I have several notes from Aletha's presentations. It's not that it is not that major, but these probably could be improved for the next 15-minute presentation. Well, I guess most of us have that type of accent probably, or for those of you who aren't that familiar or not accustomed to communicate actively in English. Sometimes the word pronunciation of us or a certain letter pronunciation could be misleading or could be not correctly spoken. So sometimes when we say some type of word, for example, in Aleta's case, is that composite and composite. Composite is more probably it's coming from Indonesian, I guess, but the composite index is what's usually we use in the stock price terminology. So probably the accent is just some kind of a minor adjustment that probably you should have, and everybody, I think, they have their own situation where accents is sometimes making the meaning of a certain words a little bit confusing, or etc. and so on. But nevertheless, in this assignment or in this presentation progress, what we emphasis is more on the content and the visualization of your presentations. Even though we knew that improvement in the English language itself could be beneficial for us, especially when we are going to prepare ourselves for certain meetings, international meetings, etc., and so on in the future. Okay, thank you, Aleta. I'm taking too much time from everybody's time, I guess, by talking too much. So let us move on to the fifth presenter, Rifki Nafis Mubarak.
Yes, sir. Is my voice clear, sir?
Yes.
Is it seen already?
Yes. Okay, you may start whenever you're ready.
Okay. Let me prepare my stopwatch first.
Okay,
Assalamualaikum warahmatullahi wabarakatuh. Good afternoon, Mr.
Assalamualaikum.
Harry and everyone here. Thank you so much for the time. Let me introduce myself. My name is Rifki Nafis Mubarak. I'm a student from Instrumentation and Computational Group Physics Study Program Institute Teknologi Bandung. Today, I will introduce my final assignment entitled Waterways Cleaning Robot for Pengelolaan Sampah Project, or in English, we say Waste Management Project in Citarum River. Now, there's a question here. Is Citarum River one of the most polluted rivers in the world? Although it is a bit controversial, the Citarum River is indeed polluted. In fact, 3 out of first 5 related terms that came out if you search the dirtiest river in the world on Google are Citarum. There are so many articles that crown the Citarum River as the most polluted river in the world, as you can see at the picture, where there are so many headlines to the Citarum River being polluted and unsafe to people. Even according to The Guardian, and I quote, many people suffer for dermatitis, contact crisis, intestinal problem, delays in child development, renal failure, chronic bronchitis, and a significant incidence of tumors. So the next question is, why is Citarum River one of the most polluted river in the world? Before that, let me tell you what is Citarum River, how big it is, and why is it very important to people living near the river. As you can see at the picture, the Citarum is the longest and largest river in West Java, running 270 kilometers through thousands of communities to connect the people, villages, and landscape of the most populous province in Indonesia. It's for the food, water, and electricity supply for 25 million people, irrigating hundreds of thousands of hectares of rice field and supplying the nation's largest reservoir. So, why is Citarum River so polluted? There are several reasons that cause the Citarum River to be polluted. The first reason is the large number of people who live close to the river. We know that West Java is the most populous province in Indonesia. Because of that, many people live near the water source, do not keeping the sanitation there very well. Then the second reason, there are so many industries that stand near rivers, throw their waste into rivers, such as textile waste, and so on. And then reason number 3 is household waste, where there is waste is very much produced by settlements that do not have permits land or belongs to the state and is not covered by the national garbage disposal system. So they throw the garbage into the river. And then next, there is lack of education. This reason may be a little controversial, but it cannot be denied that low education make residents who live near the river do not realize how dangerous it is to pollute the river. And then the last reason is a bad waste management system, or the government is reluctant to take care of household waste and industrial waste disposal system that live near the river. So how do we solve these problems? In 2018, the Indonesian government established the Citarum Harum, a 7-year river revitalization program with the goal of making the Citarum's water drinkable by 2025. The program has been supported by the International Monetary Fund and the Asian Development Bank. There are 12 programs in the Citarum Harum Action, including several solutions that answer some of the problems I mentioned earlier, such as education and community empowerment in handling domestic waste and handling industrial waste. But on this occasion, I will only discuss one project that related to my final assignment, and that is waste management program. Here, the one that pop up on the screen. According to the Citarum Harum website, waste management is a systematic, comprehensive, and sustainable activity that includes waste reduction and waste handling. This program consists of 2 parts. First, namely human resources as the river cleaning agents, and then the second part is the equipment to clean the river. My final project focuses on the equipment for cleaning the river, and the name of the project is Waterways Cleaning Robot. As you can see at the picture on the left side, it is one of the robots made by physics student from Institut Teknologi Bandung in 2019, Ms. Haima Arnisti, who has the same project as me on making a robot for the Citarum Harum Action. And then in the picture on the right side is a GIF taken from YouTube, and the simulation of the robot on the right side is similar, more or less the same as the robot made by Ms. Haima. So how does the robot work? As you can see, on the screen, there is a flowchart that explains how does the robot work. First of all, at the start, we turn on the robot via the remote control. Then the next part is to check whether there is garbage or not. To the flowchart, I call it as object. If yes, then we activate the conveyor and it will lift the object to the trash can. And then after the water level sensor shows the limit level for the robot to float, then we go to the garbage collection point or waypoint to send it to the appropriate coordinates. If it doesn't show the water level that goes to the ship limit to float, then the robot will continue to collect garbage up to the specified water level limit. And then the robot will continue to search the garbage and do it repeatedly according to the loops here. So how do we make this robot? Is it so hard? Based on this picture that you guys can see on the screen, this is a mechanical framework from the robot to be built, which consists of a brushless DC motor that moves the robot from the back. Then there is a conveyor and a DC motor that can move garbage, to lift the garbage from the surface of the river to the trash can. And then there is a trash can to collect the garbage that has been lifted. And then there is a box containing electronic component. Then on the top, there are solar cells that will capture sunlight and store energy in the form of stored batteries or accumulator, or aki we say in Indonesia, to provide power to electrical component. In the picture, you can see the front view and the top view of the robot. This will be the shape of the robot's mechanical framework that will be made. And then the next slide, we have the component of the robot. There are 3 major sections that build the robot. The first section is the power supply, consisting of solar panels and accumulators to turn on the robot to work in the middle of the river. And then there is a power bank to turn on the remote control. The second section, there is a transmitter part, which function as a remote control consisting of Arduino as a microcontroller. And then there is a joystick as a driver and a radio module as a signal sender to the receiver. Furthermore, the receiver section consists of Arduino as the microcontroller or the mind master or the brain of the robot. Then there is a radio module in the receiver section to receive information sent from the transmitter. And then there is a DC motor to move the robot and move the conveyor. Then there is a water level sensor to identify whether the garbage contained in the robot is full or not. And then the next we have the transmitter section. The simulation of this section is that the power bank will power the Arduino as a microcontroller. In the Arduino, we create a program to give command to send signal from remote control or joystick to send them via radio transmitter module to the receiving section or the robot itself. The application used to create this program is Arduino with C programming language. Then Arduino will send a signal to the remote control that we made so that we can send information to robot that is working in the middle of the river through the radio transmitter module. And then the next section, we have the receiver section on the robot itself consists of power supply, which are solar panel and battery or accumulator. And then there is a radio module, a server that will receive information and then send it to the Arduino. On the Arduino, or what we call as the signal of the to the Arduino, or we call as the brain of the robot. It will process the signal and forward it to the Arduino sensor, such as motors that are move the robot and move the conveyor. There is also a water level sensor to check whether the robot has accumulated all the garbage, and then also there is a motor driver as a module to control the running of the robot itself. I think that's all from me. Here are some references that I use in making this final project, including some pictures and information on the slide. If you are curious, you can contact me via email down below, rifki.nafis@student.itb.ac.id. For your attention, I thank you. Wassalamualaikum warahmatullahi wabarakatuh. Now I will return it to Mr. Hari.
Okay, thank you very much, Rifki. You have 9 minutes and 20 seconds for the presentation, which is good. And as I mentioned probably in some lectures ago, where in a small talk, you don't need to show your references even in your defense, in your upcoming final project defense, showing your references unless it was required by your advisor or by your examinee, then you must show it. But otherwise, showing references is not part of your obligation, especially when you are having a short talk, which less than 30 minutes. If you are, even in a webinar or even in a lecture of a certain topic, the lecturer or the presenter is seldomly gave any references in the end of the talk, unless it is necessary, unless you're going to acknowledge that those references are basically so worth it to mention, especially if it's related to the institution that give you some kind of a fund or some kind of that give you some kind of advantages when you having research or study in their place, etc., and so on. Then you may refer to their publication, but otherwise you don't need to show the publication after all. But nevertheless, thank you for your time, Rifki, so that we can move on to our sixth presenter, which is, okay, so we already have Rifka, Nabila, Bauya, Aleta, and Rifki. So I would like to call Fadila Rizalul Yahya.
Is it already seen?
Yes. Okay. Whenever you're ready, Fadila.
Okay, sir. Okay, Assalamualaikum warahmatullahi wabarakatuh. Good day, everyone. My name is Fadila Rizalul Yahya. My ID number is 102-18055. Today, I'm going to present you about my research that is entitled Analysis of Markov chain application on stock trend, study case of PTH Sampurna. Stock market in general is one of the attractive field for investment, especially in Indonesia. Indonesia's stock market has continued gradually to move to its best state. As we can see here in the screen, of about 25% of Indonesia's stock market rises in the total number of SID. SID, that stands for Single Investor Identification, is the investor identity number published by KSAI to allow people register as an investor. Based on this data, people are now looking at investment on stock market, and they could make choice to do a good investment as they want. So to consider stock market for investor taking the opportunity, one of method to analyze the trend is based on future expectation of the stock market. Therefore, the study conduct the analysis of stock market trend movement. The model used in this study is Markov chain model. Markov chain model has been widely applied to analyze stock trend. It is determined by using probability transition matrix and initial state value. Markov chain model also provide an overview by stock price present state value about the movement in the future. Next, trend in stock market is a pattern. Either it is up, down, constant, or so on over a certain period of time. In investment analysis terminology, Semyonov in 2017 said that a trend is seen as a price movement that lasts long enough to be defined and is still tradable. Figure 2 shows the pattern of the trend. We can see the ups, downs, and so on. As for analyzed stock trend is used to see the changes and movement in current time and in future. Generally, method to analyze stock trend can be divided into fundamental and technical. By fundamental means approaching fundamental data of companies such as financial report, cash flow, inflation, macroeconomy, and other references. While by technical, based on market behavior in certain time and also by history price of range of time. Wijat Moko in 2009 said, in technical method, it is based on what happens in market that is not affected by any political issue, economic phenomenon, or so on. Markov chain using current state value of stock market to determine future occurrence. One of the advantage is it is easier to predict the possibility of state value in a certain period of time. In general, Markov chain method using parameters that are states, initial state distribution, and state transition probability. The work principle of Markov chain is calculate initial value as state space, then calculate state transition probability, and predict the possibility of state value. Definition of Markov chain: we let variable x to be a stochastic process that take on a finite of possible values. If that xn equals to I, then the process is said to be in state I at time n. Whenever the process in state I, there is a fixed probability Pij that will next be in state j. To gain understanding more about this Markov chain method, let us see the simple one. I like to start with an example. Assume there is a restaurant that serves only 3 kinds of foods: hamburger, French fries, and pizza. The restaurant obeys a weird rule on any given day. They serve only of these 3 foods, and it depends on what they had served yesterday. In other words, there is a way to predict what they will serve tomorrow if we know what they are serving today. For instance, first, there's a 60% chance that tomorrow will be a French fries day, given that today is a hamburger day. Here, the diagram represents as weighted arrows originates from the current state and points the future state. And in the left one here is all the possible transition matrix. Mathematically said, n plus 1 step will be j depends only on the nth step, not the complete sequence of steps that came before n. In the rock one here, it is called transition matrix. We name it as A. the weight of the edge connecting the two corresponding vertices. For example, the element in second row and first column denotes the weight of the transition probability from French fries to a hamburger. If an element is zero, then it just means that there is no edge between the two. After this, the goal is to find the probability of each state. Suppose in the beginning, restaurants serve French fries, so the matrix have element 1 on the second element. When this pi is multiplied by the transition matrix, then after a certain point, the output row vector should be exactly the same as the input vector. It is denoted as pi a equals pi. The element of pi must add up to 1 because it denotes a probability distribution. So after solving these two equations, then we get stationary state that tells about restaurant will serve hamburger about 25 of 71, French fries about 15 of 71, and pizza about 31 of 71. Next, the collection of data. How do I collect the data? The data comes collected from Yahoo Finance of PT Hanjaya Migas Sampurna. The exact is the close price of the stock from 1 January 2017 until 31 December 2017. Here, I conclude the procedure of methods. It starts from choosing company stock market, that is PT Sampurna, and collecting data required. Then the stock market price divided into 4 states or category, and then determining the state transition probability matrix, construct the state process, and then calculating the state probability. By that, we conduct first step analysis and getting the model, and after that, we get the conclusion. That's all from me. Thank you for the attention. Wassalamualaikum warahmatullahi wabarakatuh.
Okay, Waalaikumsalam warahmatullahi wabarakatuh. Fadilah has spent 7 minutes for his presentation, so it's actually 7 minutes and 10 seconds. With the analogy that you have for Markov change, for the Markov chain illustration with fast food ordering. So next time when you have that 15 minutes presentation in the final presentation session, I hope that you could describe them more better, probably. Even though I think the way that you describe the analogy at this point is already good, but probably a little bit more enthusiastic or have different tones when you are speaking, when you are describing the slides. So one of the message probably that I want to send to everybody also when you are presenting, please try to make your tones a little bit up and down so that the attention of the, especially when you're going to emphasis on certain point, you may increase the volume of your voice, or you can make some kind of an intonation so that, well, this is important. Well, so in this description, the main message is basically coming out from this point with a certain type of enthusiastic tones, probably, that may increase the attention of the viewers or attention of the listeners more onto the talk. Especially you have at the present time you have a tremendous analogy between Markov chain system with fast food ordering. So keep up the good work. I mean, it's just that you need to practice a little bit more on the tones or the voice yourself, so that the presentation style of yours is not going to be too monotonic. Okay, so it might increase the attention or increase the curiosity of the listener for your talk. Okay, thank you, Fadila. The next one after Fadila is Muhri Iza. Is Muhri in the classroom? Let me see. Muhri Iza. No, there are no Muhri Iza in the classroom. Okay, so is it possible for Hans to show his presentation? Are you okay? Is Hans in the classroom? Okay, I see Hans in the classroom, but is Hans able to show his presentation at the moment or not?
I am in the market store.
Oh, okay. Okay, so you are still on your you're still stuck on a traffic at the moment. Okay, so let us conclude our session today. Thank you for all of the 6 presenters that already present today. We're going to allocate Hans' time into Tuesday. I hope Hans will be able to present on next Tuesday for his presentation. So let us conclude our session today with a big round of applause for everybody who already gave their 10 minutes talk for today's session. So in the last part of our session today, I've been given a task from Ibu Fatima concerning your response to the midterm questionnaires that the physics study program gave you earlier from a certain link. Okay, let me show you the response. Okay, so this needs to be recorded because Ibu Fatima requests us to make some kind of a documentation when we are discussing about this. So from the scientific communication given by Pahari Mahardika, we got 15 respondents from 24 students enrolled in this class. So most of you giving a good score for the outcomes. I guess 1 is the lowest mark and 4 is the highest mark. But I'm noticing that in terms of your ability or your in terms of your opinion on your ability to acquire the outcomes of this lecture, you still have an average point of 2, I guess. So 2 is basically in Indonesian it is cukup. Cukup means average. So I hope that after the end of the semester, this 7% opinion or 7% response over here could be improved, or so the number will not. So the number of 7% will be decreasing by times go on, and then after the end of the semester, you have the ability to basically talk in a certain scientific meetings using English, and you could send across the message of your topic basically in a sophisticated way, even though you are a novice or a new people who are involving in the scientific activities. It doesn't mean it will be your disadvantage. It's become basically your benchmark for your own improvement later on in the future, especially when you are going to work in a multinational companies or in a graduate studies abroad, or in a institution where you are required to speak in international languages. So therefore, this class or this lecture that is given by the physics study program is going to be your stepping stone basically to become more, to become a better professionals later on. Okay, so that is coming out from the third. I guess this is, if I'm counting here, the first one is from the upper left, which is this one, and then I guess the third one is saya mencapai atau menguasai luaran mata kuliah ini. I am able to I'm able to understand and to menguasai is conquered, but it's not a correct terminology. I mean, I could understand and also I could manage to obtain the outcomes of this lecture. So since this questionnaire is given in the mid-semester, I hope by the end of the semester this number is decreasing. And also in the entry number 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8. Okay, I agree with you in terms of the amount of work that you need to fulfill for this lecture. 3. Well, basically, I'm not using the whole 3 hours of our time, but the requirement for this class is for you to able to do poster and oral presentation as well as writing a paper. It doesn't go in the instant way. It needs some kind of a progress or a continuous improvement, so that we as teacher will see how you are improving from one period to another. So the amount of work that are required for you to pass for this class, maybe you think it is kind of burdensome, okay, because you have 3 presentations and well, the required one is you have 3 minutes presentation, 10 minutes presentation, and 15 minutes presentation with Q&A session. And then you need to send me the report of your literature review or the introduction part of your paper, and then the full paper, and then the poster presentation. Well, since those assignments are basically derived from the syllabus that we have in the SIX, so the best way for me or for us, the teacher, to evaluate your progress is that we had that divisions. So what I'm going to say is that we cannot ask you to make full paper and 15 minutes presentation directly. Okay, so it's impossible. Even if you are enrolling in a course or an English lecture from, for example, from LIA or from IELTS or from I don't remember what is the English course that we have in Dago area. Or from ILP or many other institution nowadays who provides you to have English course. The evaluation of your study is basically done in a sequential method, so that you could see whether you are improving from time to time. So with the same approach, with a similar approach that is taken in those institutions, I basically want to know about the improvement that you have during this class. So that's why probably for some of you think that the amount of work that is applied in this class is too much. In his or her opinion, but the amount of work that are designed for this class, especially in this class, is designed for you and also for me to really understand ourselves better, so that whenever we have the chance to improving from a very small assignment to to the main one, we will knew that this section is already okay, and that section is need to be fixed, and this one is need to be practiced more and more, etc. and so on, so that you can have that self appreciation and self learning about the things that you need to improve from the beginning until the end period of the lecture. So I hope that everybody understand that the amount of work is designed in such a way that we could monitor your progress in this class, so that by the end of the day, when you are finishing with this class, you take many points, or you take something to learn from this one, whether it's related to the basics on how to create a presentation, an oral presentation, the basic on how to create a poster presentation, or the basics on to writing a certain article, etc. and so on. And so, based on your suggestion, which is quite short, okay, the comments and suggestion made by 15 respondent of you sudah cukup seru dengan English class-nya. The lecture is done in a good fashion, sudah baik, sangat bagus. Okay, so I'm just going to thank for all of your comments and your response regarding the progress of the class. So I think there will be no major changes need to be made for this semester's activities, but I will include your suggestion probably for the next one, depending on the it also depending on how many students enrolled in this class, because if scientific communication class obtain more than 30 people or 30 students enrolled in this class, it means that the teacher needs to make some kind of a adjustment, not to do too many activities with the 30 plus students. Okay, but since we are on the eligible, or we are on the suitable number, or the ideal number of students for a communications class, so I think with 6 main activities, 3 presentations, 3 oral presentation, 1 poster presentation, and 2 scientific paper assignment, it will be enough for us especially to monitor and to evaluate your progress in working on papers, and also in presenting orally and using a poster. Okay, so for this one, since Ibu Fatima asked us actually to sign a questionnaire statement letter, I will do we have some kind of a chairman in this class, a student chairman for this class, or should I ask someone in this class? Is there any volunteer from any of you who wants to sign the questionnaire statement letter? Or should I ask someone from you to sign this one so that I can send so that we can send our report to Ibu Fatimah later on? Okay, we have 24 people. There are, I guess, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. I guess there are 5 people who are coming from class of 2017, and the rest are basically the member of class of 2018. So is it okay for me to ask someone to become the representative of the class to sign the questionnaire statement letter? Okay, if there are no response, then I will take that as a yes. Okay, I will ask someone from the class to basically help me to sign the statement letter later on, so that I could send this this letter to Ibu Fatima as the response of the midterm questionnaire. Okay, so by that, I will conclude our session today. Thank you for all of your attention. We're going to meet again on Tuesday for the second session of the 10 minutes presentation, student presentation, held in, I guess, in 7 a.m. Tuesday. Okay, good afternoon for everybody, and see you all again on Tuesday. Thank you. Okay, I will stop the sharing option and I will stop the recording.
Yes, sir.